What if I said that you can have anything you want in life if you can master this one thing? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking the one thing that I need to master to have everything I want in life is discipline, because these guys always talk about discipline. But what if I told you it's not discipline? In fact, the one thing that you need to focus on is standards. And let me plead my case here, guys. Welcome to the Bedros Keuilian Show. I'm Bedros Keuilian, and today's episode is about the one thing that you need to develop to achieve anything and everything you want in life, from health, fitness, relationships, money, faith, purpose, passion in life. And you would think that it would be discipline. And in the past, of course, I've told you it's discipline in terms of discipline, focus, consistency, and delayed gratification. And I still stick to that. But discipline, focus, consistency, and delayed gratification are only a byproduct of your standards, right? Because your standards determine your status in life. Let's face it, you may not like hearing that, but your standards do determine your status in life. So let me break this down for you for a moment. I want to tell you a story that I think will draw a very beautiful parallel to what I mean when I say you've got to start setting higher standards for yourself. And if you're struggling in life, if you're having financial problems, if you're not happy with your body, if your relationship sucks, you don't feel like there's any love or respect in your relationship, there's no more passion in your relationship, you don't feel like you have any purpose in life, and your faith is at best shaky, right? Your faith in yourself, your faith in your God, your faith in the higher power is at best questionable and shaky. It's a byproduct of your standards. And I'm going to give you a story here to prove my point. So let's dive into it. So about a year and a half ago, I was out on the East Coast, and one of my coaching clients has a giant building. And in this building, he runs 300 employees. Now, it doesn't matter who the coaching client is and doesn't matter what the business is, but amongst the 300 employees, there are 15 leaders. And so since I coach this guy, he said, hey, can you come out and speak to my leadership team to help them level up, to help them dial in their performance even better? Because if my 15 leaders can level up and get more dialed in, then they can run our company and the 300 people that they manage and lead even better. He makes a very good point. And so there we are in his building on the 30th floor. There's 15 leaders, myself, and the two principals, my coaching clients, who own the building and the business. Now, there aren't the 300 employees because it's a Saturday, and we're going to work from 9 a.m. to about 4 p.m. with these 15 leaders to help spin them up and get them dialed in. Now, here's what happens next. After I teach from 9 a.m. to about 11, I like to give people a break. They can get some water, they can get a snack, they can go out and get a little fresh air, just to refresh their brains so that the work that we're doing soaks in. Well, here's what happens next. I give them a break. A few people run to the bathroom. A few people go out and get some water. A few people stand out on the balcony and get some fresh air. About 15 minutes in, and I realize I need to use the pisser as well. So I walk into the restroom, and it's 3 stalls and 2 urinals on this particular floor. Remember, this is the leadership floor. And it's 3 stalls and 2 urinals. I'm in the men's restroom. Now, the 2 urinals were being used, and so I walked into one of the stalls. And when I walked into one of the stalls, it looked like a disaster. There was piss literally all over the toilet seat. There was piss on the floor, and it looked like someone literally closed their eyes, whipped out their shalong, and just haphazardly pissed everywhere. They may have gotten a drop or two in the actual toilet. Most of it landed on the seat and on the floor. Now, keep in mind, this is the leadership team of a billion-dollar company that I'm working with. And so I decided that, well, what am I going to do? My particular standards are very high. The standards in this building and our headquarters is very high. Heads would roll if I walked into any restroom at Fit Body Bootcamp headquarters here, and there was piss on the floor, piss on the seats, right? And because my standards are high, I did what my standards dictate. I got a whole bunch of toilet paper, balled it up, and cleaned off the toilet seat, and wiped down the floor, and then flushed it down the toilet, took my piss, and went back to the meeting after washing my hands. And so the meeting kicked back off at around 11:20, and I'm going through this PowerPoint that I've got set up for them. But inside I'm brewing, man. I'm brewing. I could feel the anger just building up inside me. And finally, I'm like, hey guys, here you guys are. When I asked you what the core values are in your company, all of you leaders rattled them off. And they said they're driven, they have high expectations, they have attention to detail, and they have greatness in everything they do. Those are the 4 cultural core values that this company has, right? And if you run a company or you work in a big company, you know that companies will typically have core values. And the whole idea of core values is this is what you should reek of. If you have core values, they shouldn't be aspirational, meaning something that you aspire to be. They should be something that you are, something that you reek of, something that you consistent of, right? That you are consistently doing and that you consist of. If not, it is just aspirational. And what's the point of an aspirational core values? That doesn't mean that you're able to deliver those. So as they go through their core values with me, now I'm really boiling over because I realize someone in this room was in that stall and they pissed all over the toilet seat and the floor and they had no desire to clean up after themselves. They came back to the meeting. So I stopped the meeting right then and there and I said, hey, listen, there's 15 leaders here and 2 principals and myself. Of the 15 leaders, 5 of you are women. So I know 5 of you are free from what I'm about to say. The rest of you, 1 of you is responsible for walking into one of the 3 stalls in the men's restroom and losing absolute control of your cock and pissing everywhere, all over the toilet seat, all over the floor, and then literally shrugging it off and walking out, washing your hands. I don't even know if you washed your hands. It's questionable if that absolute pig of a human being would even have washed their hands. And then they went into the meeting again, right? I go, so how can you say that your core values are something that you're aligned with, that you're driven, that you have high expectations of yourselves, that you have attention to detail, and you guys have greatness in everything you do? The reality is you don't. And the reality is that some of you have probably seen that happen before and you just shrug it off and you don't go finding who it is and give them a piece of your mind. Set them straight, help them raise their standards, right? And so I said, if this is the standard that you guys are leading the 300 people in, this could be a $2 million or $2 billion or $3 billion company instead of just a $1 billion company. However, the standards are obviously too low and you guys are fresh out of shits where standards are concerned. And this is the story that I really want to impress on you, is because in life, most of us have been told that we can just be okay if we're average and we accept mediocrity, just the lowest standard of expectations for ourselves. I see this happen whenever I work out in a big box gym that's not my gym. Whenever I work out in a big box gym somewhere, I see it all the time. You'll see sweat stains on the bench. Someone worked out, fucking dribbled all their nasty oatmeal all over the workout bench and then walked off. And then someone may have left 5, 6, 7 plates per side on the leg press, or on the bench press. They leave a 45 and a few 10-pound plates because they're too much of a pussy to re-rack their weight, right? And you see it in parking lots all the time in grocery stores, where people will take their shopping cart, empty it, and then they'll leave that shopping cart right there in the parking stall instead of returning it back to the shopping cart corral. What do you think all that is? These are all low standards. Every single one of those people, the shopping cart person, the person that leaves the weights on the bar, the person that leaves the sweat stain on the a puddle of sweat on the bench, the person who sits and pisses all over that toilet seat, every single one of those people have low standards. And those standards, they're not just isolated to their own personal life. Those standards then bleed into their relationship. Those standards bleed into their finances. Those standards bleed into their mental and emotional capacity. Those standards bleed into their cleanliness, their relationship, right? All of it. The amount of money you make and the debt that you're in. I bet those same people, I can look inside their car and you know who you are, you sick, filthy animals. You have Starbucks cups from a week ago. You have burger wrappers and hot dog trays from 3 days ago. You've got a corn dog sitting in between the back seats that's rotting and you know it's there, that you can smell it, but your lazy ass is just too fucking lazy to actually go and remove that, right? You've got all this gunk in your car. You've got dents on your car. You're not getting the dents fixed. You're not keeping your car clean. And then if I were to look inside your house, your bedroom, it's the same thing. It's a mess. If I can then crack open your head, it's the same thing. It's a mess. If I look at your finances, the same thing. It's a mess. If I look at your relationship, the same thing. It's a mess. Disorganized, disarray, and an absolute mess. These are the standards you're living by, friends. And the reason I say this is because when I worked at Broadway Bagel in Balboa Island, there's this beautiful little island right off the coast of Newport Beach here in Southern California. And in high school, I worked at the little bagel shop that was right there on Balboa Island. Now, Balboa Island has probably the most expensive real estate in all of California. Currently, you'll find the average home is about $11 million. And then the bigger mansions are $25 to $45 million, right? And I shared this with you because when I worked on Balboa Island, but I lived in Anaheim, I was exposed to two very different standards of humans. The people that I lived around in Anaheim let the grass grow out. They never edged anything. Their cars were leaking oil on the driveway. And that was the standard that they accepted for themselves. Then the people who lived on Balboa Island, when I would park my car and I would walk around the island, I would see that these homes were clean and immaculate. The grass was always kept. The driveways were always clean. And then when these people came in to order their bagels in the morning when I worked there, their conversations were different. They just had a very different standard in terms of their cleanliness, in terms of their environment, in terms of their relationship, how they related to each other, like the husbands and wives, the boyfriends and the girlfriends, how the dads and the moms related to those kids, how they were respectful in the way they communicated, how they were thoughtful in choosing the words that they used. And I realized these motherfuckers have different standards for their money, for their relationships, for their mindset, for their faith, for their cleanliness, for their environment, for everything. And then when I would drive home to Anaheim, I saw that the standards were lower. And what I realized is there's many factors that determine standards. Like the people in your circle of influence, the people around you determine your standards. If the person to your left and to your right is unkept and unclean, soon you will become unkept and unclean. You know that, right? That's why we hear this all the time. You are the byproduct of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. And that is because if they have high standards, your standards will organically increase. But if they're broke, if they're poor, if they're always gossiping, if they're unkept and unclean, disorganized and broke, your standards will eventually drop to a poor level. And so I share this with you because when I was exposed to the multimillionaires who lived on Balboa Island, it was then that I committed to myself that I would raise my standards to be able to live like them, operate like them, communicate like them, be financially stout like them, to have a strong, healthy relationship like them, that I wanted to be a 10 out of 10 in every category of life. I saw that they were purpose-driven. I saw that they contributed to their churches. They gave back to charity. They were always happy. They never gossiped about shit. They never talked about their sports team that they're rooting for because they had bigger plans, dreams, hopes, aspirations. They were the sports team that they were rooting for. Yet there you are with your lower standards, with another man's name on your back, with another number on your chest, as though you own that team. You know their stats. You know everything about the team. You know the history of the team. Yet you don't make any time to know those same level of stats and history and experience about the relationship you're in. And that is because you've chosen to have lower standards in the categories that matter and to actually put your values in the areas that don't matter. Gossiping, social media scrolling, hitting that vape pen, right? Alcohol, pornography, all of these things that are distractions that cause you to escape your reality is where you have put your values in. And as a byproduct of that, your standards have decreased. Now, standards come, by the way, in 3 different sizes. I should tell you this. And what most people don't understand is where we all start off, for the most part, are poor standards. And that is because the people around you set your standards. They set your expectations for yourself. So it starts off as poor. Most people have poor standards. And if they really push hard enough and they read books and they watch the right people on social media and they listen to podcasts, they slowly start to increase their standard to the next level, which is a standard of good, right? But guess what? If you are good at doing anything, your results are still poor because good is not enough today. Good is simply not enough today. There was a time, as Tony Robbins once said, there was a time where people would stay in a poor relationship because they valued the relationship itself. Today, No one wants to stay in a poor relationship. No one wants to stay in a good relationship. The bar has been set to excellence, right? And those are the 3 levels: poor, good, and excellent. And if you are not shooting for excellent, you're hovering somewhere in a standard of poor or good. This is why your relationship suffers. This is why you guys have poor communication. This is why you don't go on dates. This is why it doesn't feel like it's just one big, long, beautiful date till the day you die. And you just feel like it's a death sentence, that your relationship is a sentence instead of one big, long date. That's what it should feel like. You should feel like my partner has my back. You should feel like your spouse has a high give a shit factor, and they are there for you emotionally. They are there for you mentally. They are there for you physically, and you need to be there for them. Every day you need to earn that relationship. The standards need to be that high in terms of excellence. Same with your self-worth. Because if you are letting your body degenerate, if you've got floppy tits and a dad bod with like stretch marks around your belly button, how attractive are you to anyone? You know you're not attractive to yourself. You look in the mirror, you throw up in your mouth a little bit, and you go downstairs and you deep throat another hot dog, hoping that the food will take away the pain. That's not going to happen, my friend. You know that, right? The food, the distractions, the video games, watching TV, none of that. Social media, none of that is going to take the pain away. It'll temporarily be a distraction for you. You will temporarily be able to escape your reality. But the truth is, your lady does not want to get in bed with you. The truth is, she's a little bit disgusted with you. If I could milk your titties and I could slap your titties around, if you've got stretch marks around your midsection because your body got fat so quickly that the skin could not keep up and it had no choice but to tear, those are the stretch marks around your waistline and your belly button that you ought to be ashamed of. And I'm telling you this because those are poor standards to maintain. How do you expect to have a great relationship if you can't even maintain standards of self? You don't even have a great relationship with yourself. You cannot have excellence in your relationship if you don't have excellence in self. When was the last time you actually tracked your macros, your proteins, fats, and carbs? When was the last time that you could visually see your abs? When was the last time that you could flex and see muscle contract? When was the last time that you could bench and squat and deadlift and sprint and hike and get on the mats and roll? When was the last time that you could pick up your kids with ease? When was the last time that you could go to the ocean and swim, or the lake or the pool? When was the last time you felt confident and secure in taking off your shirt and knowing that people aren't going to throw up in their mouths, that people aren't going to judge you, that people aren't going to secretly snicker and laugh at you? It's probably been a long time. And so if you've got low standards in yourself, if you've got low standards in your relationship, if you've got low standards in your money, like I just need to get by to pay my bills and that's it, I don't mind living in a shitty community. You don't? Not until your honey gets mugged, robbed, carjacked. That kind of shit, there's a far less likelihood of that kind of shit happening in a better neighborhood. A neighborhood where people are affluent. A neighborhood where people have higher income. A neighborhood where people live behind gates. Right? And so if you're not making enough money, you don't have the means to secure your family, to have a safe home. You're always stressed over finances. You have to look at the prices on the menu. You're not giving your family the experiences they want, the vacation that they want. Because again, you can't afford it because your standards for money are set to just paying the bills and that's it, just eking by. That is poor. That is poor. And good financial standards are maybe what? All right, so you got the average American that has like $2,000 in a savings account. That's good financial standards. We want excellence, my friend. We want excellence. And if we're going to have excellence, then you have to put yourself in a place where you could have a nice home. It could be in a safe community. Your lady's driving a quality vehicle. You know that your bills are paid, and God forbid a disaster happens to you or to your family or to your extended family, that you could be there with money to save the day. That is financial excellence. And if you can have financial excellence, now you know how to invest, how to put your money to work. You're no longer buying liabilities, you're buying assets. And that doesn't mean that you have to go buy an apartment complex, but for crying out loud, can you save enough money to put a down payment on a little townhouse or a condo and put a tenant in there so that your tenant starts paying off that rental property and gives you cash flow on a monthly basis? So that as the value of that home appreciates down the line, you might have 3, 4, 5 of them as you refinance that home, take money out and use that money for down payments for other homes. Who knows, one day you might have a 20 or 200 unit apartment complex. That is financial excellence. But financial poverty, poor, when standards are so low, you're like, man, as long as I'm paying my bills, I could sit here in my car or on the toilet and scroll social media, play video games, gamble on this app. Stop that shit, man. Stop that shit. So what I learned there at Balboa Island was the affluent live better lives. The affluent have higher standards. The affluent invest in assets. And the affluent have intelligent conversations. That is not a byproduct of their genetics. That is not a byproduct of anything else other than they have actively chosen to raise their standards from poor to good to excellent in the categories that matter, in yourself, as in your health, your fitness, your mental and emotional being, right? Your relationships, your money, your faith in yourself and your higher power, and of course, in your cleanliness, your standards of your surroundings. Because if your surrounding area, car, home, workspace is a clutter, is a mess, garbage in, garbage out. You know that. Garbage in, garbage out. And so if there's anything better than discipline, it is standards. When you set those standards high and you set those expectations of those standards for yourself and the people around you high, and you make all the hiring and firing decisions of the people around you in your life and in your business based on standards, then you become the catalyst to raise the bar, raise the standards, raise the expectations for everyone around you. Now, everyone looks at you with respect. Everyone looks at you as a leader and no longer as a liability.